feeling of, as a lot of people described, entitled feeling. You got the feeling he thought he was better than everyone, just his mannerisms and the way he was. And what was weird for me was no other member of the family.
Imagine a room where every pillow, every glass, and every person is a pawn in a game only one man is playing. For years, the butlers of the Royal Lodge lived in a silent nightmare, catering to rituals so bizarre they felt more like psychological tests than household chores. But today the silence is breaking. The people who carried the trays and cleaned the messes are finally exposing the dirty reality of serving a man who truly believed he was untouchable. They've seen the tantrums, the hidden files, and the absolute disregard for anyone beneath his rank. The mask hasn't just slipped, it's been torn off, and what they're revealing about the man formerly known as the Duke of York will make you realize we never actually knew him at all. But just how deep did these rituals really go?
But with him, he had this, can't even explain it to you. I just didn't want to be in his presence. I mean, luckily I didn't have to do much for him. And as I said, I remember being at, the wedding of the King and Queen. And he was there, and there were staff members there, and he didn't speak to any of the staff members that were there as guests. He would only speak to the family or family friends.
It was never about the service, it was about the submission. Behind the heavy oak doors of the Royal Lodge, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor didn't just demand a household, he demanded a cult of personality. Imagine walking into a room where 22 teddy bears had to be arranged in a specific mathematical order every single night, or facing a royal meltdown because a curtain was left open by a fraction of an inch. To the public, he was a decorated veteran, but to the butlers who actually lived in his shadow, he was a man obsessed with rituals that bordered on the delusional. But here's where it gets truly unsettling. It wasn't just about the eccentricities, it was about the chilling way he looked right through the people who spent their lives serving him. Grant Harold, the man who stood by the side of King Charles for years, witnessed a side of Andrew that the cameras never caught. While the rest of the family shared jokes and remembered names, Andrew's gaze was described as empty and dismissive, as if the staff were nothing more than animated furniture. He didn't just want things done, he wanted to see you scramble. One former staffer recalls a test involving a deliberate mess left in the late Queen's private quarters, a psychological game played just to see who would break first. It was a pattern of behavior that screamed one thing: I am untouchable. But as the years went by, that sense of being above the law began to bleed out of the palace and into much darker circles. Because while the butlers were busy perfecting his pillows, Andrew was busy making connections that would eventually bring the entire monarchy to its knees. And those very people he treated like ghosts, they were the ones watching every secret meeting, every late-night visitor, and every suspicious document that crossed his desk. They saw the dirty rituals transform into something far more dangerous. Imagine being the woman who raised a prince only to realize you've helped shape a man who would one day become the monarchy's greatest nightmare. For the nannies who walked the halls of the palace during Andrew's childhood, the dirty rituals didn't start in his adult life, they began in the nursery. Those who were there from the beginning are finally stepping forward to describe a child who wasn't just difficult, but who seemed to take a twisted pleasure in testing the limits of everyone around him. One former staff member revealed a chilling nickname that the palace walls have kept secret for decades: the Little Grumpy Guy. But it wasn't just a childhood phase, it was a blueprint for his entire life. While King Charles and Princess Anne were being moulded by the strict, disciplined structure of the monarchy, Andrew was often given a level of freedom that turned into unchecked arrogance. The nannies describe a boy who would deliberately create chaos just to watch the staff scramble. In one of the most shocking revelations to surface in 2026, a former household employee recalled an incident where Andrew allegedly threw powder all over the late Queen Elizabeth's private bed. It wasn't a prank, it was a calculated act of defiance, a way to see if he could force those who raised him to bow to his whims. And the Queen's reaction? It was the first sign that the golden child was becoming a problem she couldn't solve. Insiders claim that even back then, the Queen began to realize that Andrew's behavior was bordering on the disturbing. He didn't just want attention, he wanted control. This grumbling behavior, as the nannies described it, grew into a sense of entitlement that would eventually lead him to believe he was above the laws of the land. But here's the most haunting part of the story. Those early tantrums and power plays were just a rehearsal for the dark connections he would make as an adult. The very same grumpy boy who refused to acknowledge the staff in his nursery grew into the man who would allegedly hide confidential government files in his private study. The Butlers saw the shift. They saw the ritual of secrecy begin to take over the Royal Lodge. As we look at where he is now, evicted, stripped of his honours and facing the coldest shoulder in royal history, you have to wonder, was the writing on the wall from the very first day in the nursery? Because the person who finally decided enough was enough wasn't just the public, it was his own brother, King Charles, who had watched these rituals for 60 years and finally decided to pull the plug. As the dust settles on the shock arrest of February 2026, one thing has become chillingly clear. The age of royal protection is dead, and Prince William is the one who buried it. While King Charles may still harbour a brother's lingering sympathy, William is reportedly ruling the family's future with an iron fist. He isn't just looking to distance the monarchy from the man formerly known as the Duke of York, he is looking to erase him from the royal fabric entirely. Insiders are now revealing that William has issued a brutal ultimatum that has left the palace stunned. If Andrew is present, my family is not. It is a complete and total blackout. William has reportedly vowed that Catherine and their 3 children will never breathe the same air as Andrew at a royal function ever again. This isn't just about a strained relationship anymore. It's about a future king who views his uncle as a radioactive threat to the very survival of the crown. This iron fist policy is so absolute that plans are already being drawn up to bar Andrew from the most sacred of future events, including King Charles's eventual funeral and William's own coronation. In William's eyes, the dirty rituals of the past are a stain that only total exile can wash away. But the pressure isn't just coming from within the family, it's coming from the investigators who are now tearing through the archives. With Andrew recently spending 12 hours in custody on suspicion of misconduct in public office, the stakes have shifted from tabloid gossip to potential treason. The trade envoy files have reportedly exposed a trail of confidential government documents that were allegedly funneled directly to Jeffrey Epstein. William is said to be horrified by the extent of the betrayal, viewing it not just as a personal failing, but as a direct attack on the UK government. The strategy now is a slow, painful eviction from history. First came the titles, then the home, and now the very right to be seen. William is reportedly behind the decision to even bar Andrew's daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie, from major events like Royal Ascot to ensure the distancing is public and undeniable. It's a ruthless move that has reportedly blindsided the princesses, but for William, there are no innocent bystanders when the integrity of the throne is at stake. He is building a wall around the monarchy, and he's making sure Andrew is on the outside looking in. But as Andrew sits in the isolation of Wood Farm, stripped of his honours and facing the cold reality of a police investigation, the biggest question remains: what happens when the final hammer falls? Coals are already growing for him to be removed from the line of succession entirely, a move that would require an Act of Parliament and officially sever his last remaining link to the throne. The palace doors haven't just closed, they've been locked from the inside, and with William calling the shots, there isn't a key in the world that can let him back in. The world is watching to see if the man who once thought he was above everyone will finally face the one thing he never expected, a world that has moved on without him.